Okay, so what we're doing is essentially we're growing an environment in our imagination, um, and we're kind of moving in towards we're moving in closer to it. Another thing that you might start to do is you might start to think about like what are the shops, what kind of shops do you have to have? You got to have grocery stores, you've got to have clothing stores, you've got to have hardware stores, and every place is going to have some kind of version of these. You might have restaurants or you might have bars, and you might start to think about a lot. The next thing that I think is really interesting to start to think about is like signage, and so you might be like, okay. Um, how does the signage look? So there might be a hardware sign. It could be up and down like that. And what kind of letters is it? Like, I think that I'm going to put this one into a Times Roman. But if you look at the work that Sean Tan did in The Arrival, he took all these fonts and like threw them together into a language that hadn't been seen before, into a form of, a kind of, it was an amalgam of a lot of different typefaces and all the signage that people were paying attention to in his story. So that's a kind of character for a sign. Or you could have a sign that said, there could be signs that were in cursive, with you know with swirls, or even more basic. It could be this sort of thing where you're seeing signs that look like something like, really no frills. Um, Crazy letters, or block letters. Anyway, you can start to imagine how lettering, the various, like, signals and signs that we have to each other on the street, start to tell us a lot about the world that we're inside of. Like, what is the stop sign? Is it, or is there a stop sign? And so we're moving into details. Another detail that we were going to want to consider is the streetlights. And the streetlights are an investment of the municipality, and some of them are really beautiful and ornate, and others are intensely utilitarian and modest, you know. So where some of them might be moving towards like a almost like a pillar with a stone base, and a different streetlight might have, some streetlights have a hanging piece that comes over and makes its way down. But especially when we start to talk about, we'll start to talk about lighting and how we're going to deal with overall lighting and mood lighting and accent lighting, and the streetlights become a big deal in those terms, you know. Here's like a kind of person height, and you could be like, here's a person height. Starting to throw in these little sketches of persons really helps you kind of feel the place on a different level, feel the scale of the place on a different level. The next detail that I want to talk about is weather. So is this a wintry place? Is it like, you know, and if you think of Star Wars, like the whole planet of Hoth is devoted to snow and ice and cold. Whereas Tatooine is like sun swept and burnt, and like, so whether if you make a decision, like let's say that we're gonna build a place into an intensely rainy climate. And so if you've got, I'm just going to sketch rain. If you have a place that has to deal with lots and lots of rain, you're going to want roof systems that can move the rain, right? You're going to want to be able to stay really dry. Now, rain isn't that heavy, like in comparison to snow. So for instance, if you are in a place with a heavy snow load, a roof system like this is really valuable because a ton of snow comes and falls, and it's going to live like over here by the side, you know. But if you're living in a place that's really rainy, maybe the roof systems that you need are shallow. And so long as they keep the rain off of you and give you, you know, room. Like these kinds of roofs would be a lot harder to build. You have to get up higher and work higher. These would be a lot easier to build, so if you could get away with a roof system that was like that. But if you're a person, you can stay out of the rain. You know, so if you're designing some place and you're going to say, you know, this place is a rainy climate, like this is going to be Seattle, you're going to get rain all the time. And if you're going to design a main street on a really rainy place, like let's say here's a view looking down a main street, and here are my buildings. And if there's going to be people having to be around here and it's going to be super rainy, all the stores would probably have eaves that would make it so that people could come and stand in the doorways and look in the windows, and the eaves might, you know, and how would those eaves be constructed? Like how would they hold on to the place? Okay. Now if the place is incredibly sunny, again, you could have, if it was a deeply sunny environment, there might be just overhangs for people to just get shade. just a gentle tip. But this would be casting a shadow on the ground. A person could be standing, or a dog might be sleeping just in a shadow that's on the ground. And it's nice to have some shade if it's really sunny. Trees would be planted to throw shade if you could grow trees, if you had enough water to grow trees. Okay, so signs, weather, and we're starting to move into a much deeper level of detail, a kind of a level of detail that will bring us in really, really close. We've got windows that we've been thinking about, like what kind of windows do places have? Do places have porches? What are their doorways like? Like, are they made of wood? Is the place, here's another question, is the place like secure to live in? Like, do windows have bars on them? Do places feel like, are they barricaded? Does it feel like there are, marauding raiders coming from the outside, or is it essentially a very, very safe place to live and be, and like in the Shire and the Lord of the Rings, it feels really safe. And one of the ideas about the Shire was that it had the problems of the world had missed it, Whereas if you look at Hogwarts, it's a castle, and it's got a moat, and it's got these high ramparts, and it's got watchtowers, and all of those things make you think, well, this isn't exactly, these guys are not living in total safety. Okay, so signs and weather.